Hey guys, this is Rob from the Retro Junkie Super Show, Turtle Flakes Podcast, and Genesis Podcast, and you are listening to the SNES Podcast, hosted by George and Greg. Don't tell Nick I was on here. He'll get me.
$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your hosts, Soul Blazer and George.
Good evening, all, or good morning, or good afternoon, or whatever time it is you're listening to this. This is the episode number 67 of the Super NES Podcast. Coming to you from New England is one of your regular hosts, Greg, and coming at you from the from the wonderful island of Long Island is another co-host, George.
That's an interesting intro. When did you think of this?
I didn't. I just kind of ran with it.
Awesome.
I try to mix things up if I can, keep things being boring. So
that's better than the intros I do for my podcasts.
Well, yeah. Different intro for a different episode because this one's kind of a special episode for us.
It sure is.
But so yeah, we're not talking about a specific game tonight. We're talking about loosely a bunch of games, all centered around two of the biggest Japanese-style games that there are there, although one is played very heavily in other countries as well. Tonight we're doing a special episode looking at Mahjong and Pachinko. Both how the games are played in Japan, and also some of the better examples that were made available on Super Famicom.
I feel like this is some terrible April Fool's joke, but it's not even April.
It could have been a joke because, as I mentioned last episode, the idea for this episode kind of came about because of the comment that one of the co-hosts, I can't remember which one it is right now, so I'm sorry about that, that either Sean or Jim of the wonderful Pie Factory podcast did in a recent episode, where they were kind of saying that they're looking forward to covering Pachinko games. I think they were responding to a comment that you had made earlier, George, in an earlier episode, about that. So, I don't know if they were kidding or not, but the idea seemed to be a good one. So I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm down for this. Let's roll with it because what
did you guys do? What did you guys do?
Because we make fun of Pachinko a lot over here, not just in this podcast, but a podcast, other podcasts as well. But I never actually played it, so there was a certain curiosity factor there, a factor involved with this. And since Pachinko wasn't enough by itself to carry an episode, I also thought we'd throw Mahjong in here as well, because I have experience playing Mahjong, but George didn't. So this is gonna be his first time delving into both these worlds.
Yep.
So let me just start off by saying that, obviously these being very Japanese games, none of these games were available in the States. Most of them play just fine over here, however, because most of them have very little text in them, so you can so it's not hard to figure out. So it's not very hard to figure out for a non-Japanese speaker how to play them. There are exceptions. George is going to talk about a game he played later on that was pretty text heavy, but the vast majority of these games can be picked up and played very easily by a Westerner. And yeah, all these games like play fine, like either in your console, like your emulation, because unlike the PAL systems, there's not really too much you have to do. Well, you have to make sure there may be the lockout mechanism, depending upon the game that would prevent you from playing a Japanese game on a North American system. But besides
you just break those two little tabs in your SNES and you're good to go.
You can do that if you want to, yeah. But we're just checking out like an emulation. But
yeah, you can do that too. Or if you have a Retron 5, you could plug that in.
That would work too. So one other note that I'm going to say as disclosure, this is a family-friendly podcast. There are some adult Mahjong and Pachinko games that are out there.
Greg, what games did you play?
Well, we could have looked at them because again, to look up going back to Pie Factory podcast, they covered some adult games like one of their episodes. And they're also family friendly, and they did a great job in handling it.
You're just using that as an excuse so you could play those nasty adult games.
I didn't actually look at them because there were enough examples. Because on this system at least, the family ones outweighed the adult ones by a wide margin. In later in later systems, that's not the case. As the consoles got more powerful, they're definitely.
So did. Never mind.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that, but
so did people's lust.
Yes. So because I did look at some other later Mahjong and Pachinko games on the consoles to see how the genre had evolved some since this time. But but yeah, so they're out there. If you want to check them out, we just simply because of the fact that the vast majority of the ones that are available on this console were T at best, T for teen. So it was just easier to stick with those. But anyway, so let's get into it. Hopefully this episode will be interesting and educational for listeners out there. So let's start off with Mahjong first, because it's the more complicated the two games to talk about. Little bit of history about Mahjong. It dates back to the last century. The game first came over to the U.S. in like 1920s and 20s, and for a short time there was a craze like the game over here, like in the West. There's many variants of Mahjong out there. The variant that was popular in the States back then, and the variant you probably be most likely to see if you come across somebody who does still play the game now, like the so-called Charleston variant. I'll mention some of the more popular variants, later on. But the game's one of those games that kind of goes dormant for a while. Like every generation comes back out for a brief resurgence. There was one that happened during the 80s, in which some Mahjong games came out here. I got exposed to the game because of a very popular game that came out during the time period, called Shanghai, like Activision, which was their attempt to kind of Westernize the game a little bit. Shanghai 2 is also available, the Super NES. If you're interested, in playing that. I
played it.
Yep. The most popular kind of Mahjong is known as Old Hong Kong Mahjong. That's the kind that's played most in Japan.
And it rhymes.
But yeah, it does actually. But but unlike Pachinko, Mahjong is pretty popular across most. Is pretty popular across much of Asia. The game originally came from China, and is played quite heavily still to this day in countries like China, Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia, those countries. So, and it's a tile-based game with usually the pieces are usually carved out of ivory or marble. They look kind of similar to domino pieces. They're just there's a little bit more like, thicker and square shaped as opposed to like domino pieces. And some of the pieces, especially the older ones, which are like hand painted and crafted, are really beautiful. They're really like works of art. Just the characters, the character diagrams that are written on them. Modern ones can also be like made out of plastic like more cheaply produced. But there's two main kinds of Mahjong games. There's the multiplayer or the old Hong Kong Mahjong game, and there's also solitaire Mahjong. And so I'm going to talk about the regular Mahjong game like a little bit here first. It's usually Mahjong's played with like 2 to 4 players. There are some variants of the game that allow for 5 or 6 players at once, but those are but much more frequent and common to have the game for like 2 to 4 players. The basic game, how it plays, is actually fairly simple. Each player starts the game 5 or 13 tiles, and when it's your turn, you draw a tile and you also discard a tile. And play just goes around the board like that. The idea is you're trying to get 14 tiles in your hand to form 4 groups, which are called melds, and a pair, which is called an eye. And once you have all those, then you announce Mahjong and you lay them down, and points are awarded depending upon who has what in their hands and what groups and groups you use to form your winning hand. And play goes on until somebody usually reaches X amount of points. If you're saying to yourself, gee, that sounds awfully familiar, that's because this is pretty much how some card games like Rummy and Gin Rummy also play. Like which idea is to get like groups in your hand, like forming like matching cards. So it's actually like very similar. The game's actually very similar. Like is actually like very similar. Like those card games, like how it plays. Of course, the game's a lot more complex than that, but we're not going to like delve into all the intricacies and complexities of it.
We'd be sitting here for hours.
Yes, matches can go on for hours.
Mm-hmm.
The other form of Mahjong is solitaire Mahjong, and as the name implies, this is like single player, and it plays a little bit like solitaire for cards. With that one, you have the tiles, usually 136 tiles, sometimes up to like 144, depending upon the variant. And there's 2 different ways the board can be arranged in solitaire Mahjong. It's either all arranged in like one big block where you can see all the tiles, or it's arranged in layers where you can't see the tile below it until you play the tile on top of it first. So like solitaire, like you don't know what you're getting at until you actually get there. And the idea of this one is, and the idea for this one is the same as it is for regular Mahjong. You're trying to form groups in your hand, trying to play tiles, and just like like card solitaire, there are situations that you can get into that are like unwinnable. We have no choice but to like start over again. So the idea basically just being that you want to just like play all your tiles. The vast majority of video games of Mahjong are solitaire Mahjong, mostly because of the complexity of trying to program a good AI player. It's really only like recent consoles that got powerful enough to really be able to pull off a decent AI. It's kind of like playing like poker online. Poker AI players are not very good just because of we're struggling with the whole idea of being able to make an AI that actually can play and operate and think like a human. So all the Mahjong games I checked out for the Super Famicom and emulation were the solitaire style, and I believe George, like all your games were too.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So
I played 2 seconds of the actual Mahjong, and I was like, no.
Regular Mahjong actually looks like, to me, regular Mahjong actually looks kind of fun. because I enjoy card games, I enjoy dominoes, and this game certainly has a lot in common like of those. So I wouldn't mind like learning it up. Learning and playing at some point. But like I said before, I have some history like playing like solitaire mahjong with games like Shanghai. George, you played some Shanghai too a little bit. What do you think about that game? I understand there's a couple Western concessions for it, to make that game a little bit more easier for Westerners to understand.
Yeah, it's just basically just a bunch of matching. It's a game. It's not something I would play like every night or something. It's not a game that I would go and rush out and buy, but
So is that your feelings? Do you like about like Mahjong in general then?
I guess so.
Do you like matching games or tile games, or those not really like a cup of tea?
They're not like games that I go out and look for to play, but I don't think lowly of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I could probably recommend these games to somebody who enjoys like you enjoy solitaire and cards, like you enjoy matching games, like you enjoy things like Scrabble or like word games. You certainly can have a lot of fun like playing this. There are groups here, like I said, there are groups. Groups here in the U.S. that do play Mahjong, on a regular basis, and it's pretty. And you can walk into a major store, like order like a kit, like online, easily enough, like you wanted to play. So, because they are still domestically produced, like even though like right now, the game's not really up. I don't got that popular, but So I know Flex, this really wasn't a cup of tea, George, but did you have any difficulties like learning how to play? Did you pick up the operation like pretty smoothly?
Yeah, it was easy for me.
Okay. So George and I George and I checked out like several Mahjong games that are on Super Famicom, because of course Mahjong is very popular in Japan, so there's a ton of Mahjong games available like for the console. I'm not going to try to pronounce the names of mine because I'm horrible at producing it's like pronouncing Japanese, and I don't want to butcher it, but overall impressions, George, what do you think about the video game versions like a Mahjong that you checked out?
They're alright. I mean, trying to play a Japanese game for also a game that I really don't know how to play. Yeah, I got my butt kicked.
I was expecting there to be a lot more graphical difference between the games, but there really weren't. I guess just because there's only like so many ways that you animate like a Mahjong tile.
Yeah, I mean, there's also that thing of, if you're playing like original Mahjong, there's also that thing of like how are they gonna show the other players and
yeah,
stuff like that, and animations on how the tiles move and everything. But I didn't see any problems with it. Everything looked fine, and everything was in a language I do not understand.
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't too much graphical difference like the games I played. I thought most of them were pretty good in graphics, though. I mean, like, these games, like, it's obvious to tell that these games are just like very simple games, like, farmed out and produced like minimal effort, because it's not really like a complex game. It's like, here's a video game Mahjong. It's like, have at it. But it's not like it requires the system be pushing its limits or anything. But
no, it's using that sweet mode 7.
I did see one game. That kind of made pseudo 3D effects. That was pretty cool, though.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like the graphics on most of these games are quite simple. I mean, simple but serviceable. I mean, the tiles are easily recognizable. The symbols on them like can be easily seen. Music for the games was kind of hit or miss. Some games had some catchy tunes, and so other games had like horrible stuff. So
I feel like the games I played were just the music was just forgettable.
Yeah, it is usually, but that's to be expected. I suppose.
That's not the focus. The focus is playing Mahjong.
Yep.
Woo.
Yeah, I mean, like, controls were simple. No problems there. So, yeah, I mean, like, playing a video game Mahjong, I don't really see too much reason to go back to 16-bit Mahjong games, though, if you enjoy it, though, because things have advanced so much better and so much more since then.
They're basically fire and forget games. You know, those are games made around that time. You know, just to have a Mahjong game and get money off of it, and then once the next console came, it's something you would never really go back to unless maybe you had some kind of nostalgia or something, or you did a podcast on them.
Right.
What the heck?
Right. So, I mean, there doesn't check out for curiosities, but I'm not sure, like, a collector of this kind of stuff, or I'm not sure, like, really eager to see how Mahjong games progressed from then to now. There really isn't too much reason to play these, because you can very freely download a free, perfectly good Windows Mahjong game, like, right now if you want to. So, which probably
why would you?
Well, I mean, like I said,
I'm just kidding.
I don't know how much playing I'm gonna do of this, but but this is a game, like I said, that I had some experience with and playing as a kid, and it was fun then, and playing it's still fun now, but like, it's a good time waster. I mean, for nothing else, like keep the brain sharp for like 10 minutes, like, or whatever. But
if they had smartphones around that time, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be making Mahjong games for SNES. So, that's more of like a mobile game thing now. But it's weird because they'll still make games like that for consoles.
Right. Yep.
Even around this time, this generation.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So. Mahjong's an interesting game. I certainly can see, like, why it's so popular. And like I said, like, you enjoy tile games, like, you enjoy, like, word games. It's, you definitely get some fun, like, playing it.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that.
So let's move on to side B then. The game I have no history.
Favorite side of the record.
The game I had no history or no experience with going in. Well, neither one of us did, actually, like, for that matter. Pachinko, which is wicked super popular, like, in Japan. There are, like, thousands of parlors dedicated to the game across the country. So, Taiwan also, for some reason, also has a lot of pachinko machines. Probably because,
really?
Actually, I shouldn't say. Actually, I think I know the reason why. Just because that they want
to be cool like Japan.
A lot of Japanese immigrants moved there after.
Oh, okay.
Like, after the war. So
okay.
Pachinko's history dates back to the 20s, like when the game was first invented, and it really took off after World War II. And like pinball games and like slot machines, the machines have advanced in technology and complexity over the years. Go from these very simple, handmade wooden creatures from the 40s and 50s up to more mechanical ones of the 60s and 70s, up to very complex, complicated electrical beasts of machines, really, that they have, like, nowadays. So also, like Mahjong, learning how to play Pachinko is pretty easy, actually. The game is really a cross between pinball and slots. Is probably the best way that I can describe it. When you go into a Pachinko parlor, like in Japan, to play, you purchase from the shopkeep a number of balls. These are small metal balls, a little bit larger than BB balls usually, that are marked with the store's logo and graphics on them, so the balls can be identified as to what parlor they belong to. You're not allowed to take the balls outside the parlor with you; they have to stay inside. And so you take your so after you buy the balls that you want, you go to a machine, and you can decide how many balls you want to feed into the machine. You could, you could decide to put in anywhere from 1 to as many as you want to, and then you can also decide how many balls you want to shoot at once by putting them onto a lever that operates a lot like a plunger, like a pinball machine.
See, I didn't know that part. Huh.
Yeah. So, many people shoot off one at a time, but other people prefer shooting off like 2, 3, or 4, or more at once because you shoot. The game's a combination of luck and strategy because because like pinball, depending upon how you shoot the ball can depend upon what angle it takes. Because you're trying to get the ball into these several cups that are positioned across the play field. I'm using the word cup, even though they may not always be a cup, but.
For every case that I've seen, they're basically cups.
Yeah. So depending upon where the cup's located at and how wide the cup is, will depend upon how many points that cup's worth. And you're trying to get the ball obviously into a cup, because if the ball does not go into a cup, then it rolls out like into a drain like the bottom of the machine, and that ball goes bye-bye. And depending upon the machine, some machines have bumpers around them that can bounce the ball around, kind of like a pinball table. Some of them have moving targets, where like the cup can move back and forth some to make it more difficult to hit. Some machines can have passageways that open and close. So there's a certain amount of strategy and timing trying to get the actual right timing to get to get the ball like where you want it to go. So you play until you're done, and if the ball goes into a cup, it spits out that number of balls for you, like in the tray at the bottom, kind of like a slot machine. And when you're done playing, you call an attendant over. He confirms everything's okay, and then he takes the balls up to the front with you, and in the old days, counted them out. Nowadays, they just have the automatic weigh machines. The weigh machines, they can tell you exactly how many balls are in there at once. So, and then so at that point, you're given 3 options. You can either have a prize, something the parlor offers. You can either have a coupon that will entitle you to come back at a later visit and redeem those in for balls. Or if you did particularly well, you can get what's called a cash prize. We then take to a nearby shop. This is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing because it's actually pretty interesting. Gambling for cash is legal in Japan, but the way the law is worded, the Pachinko machines are allowed to operate in this way because there is a machine. Yeah, because the parlors are not paying out in cash per se; they're just paying out prizes. However, near every Pachinko parlor, and sometimes even in the same building, as a matter of fact, there's a small shop where you can take your cash prize and turn it in to receive money. So it's allowed by the law because like both places can legally say we're not engaging in gambling because you need both shops. I need both businesses to complete the transaction. Like, that makes sense.
Well, also, you're not putting money inside the machine. You're putting balls in the machine.
Yeah,
so you're
that
not
too.
You're not really paying
to
play the machine.
Yeah, it's a little bit hanky-panky, like how the laws word it, and sometimes the police have kind of skirted it a little bit. But generally speaking, it's worked that way in Japan for many years. So
many years.
Yeah. So also for many years, the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, was in charge of many of the Pachinko parlors in the country, much like how the mafia here used to be in charge of this the gambling industry, like in Las Vegas.
Yep.
But starting in the 60s and quite a bit in the 90s, there were a series of crackdowns and law changes that found pretty much removed the illegal crime influence like in the parlors. So These machines are very popular. There are tons and tons of parlors across the country. Smoking still allowed in them. So many pachinko parlors are
Very smoky areas.
Yes. And some of these games I was looking at online, they're crazy these days. It's like, there are pachinko games that will put slot machines even I like to shame, like how like set up and set up and play, because you have major companies like Nintendo and Konami producing pachinko games.
Yeah.
So they're pretty intricate these days, and also many arcades over there will have popular pachinko games in them, where sometimes gamblers will like go to an arcade first to check out a new machine to try to figure out how it operates and try to get the hang of it before going to a parlor and trying their luck there. So,
scouting, huh?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how pachinko operates. Definitely a very weird blend of pinball and slots, while having elements of both present in it. So, and the pachinko games on the Super NES are pretty much the same quality as the Mahjong games we looked at earlier. Pretty simple, but also they get the job done. The graphics I found these were a bit more bright and colorful. There's more options available for play on these than is Mahjong. You can decide how many balls you want to start off with, what kind of prizes are awarded in some games, that kind of stuff. Pretty much a lot of what we said for Mahjong video games kind of applies to pachinko video games. Simple, effective, they get the job done. Not really too much reason.
More fun.
Definitely. More fun, yes, but for me, it's kind of like, I kind of feel the same way about playing pachinko that I did, like playing slots. Because I love playing slots. Slot machines are my favorite, preferred gambling pastime. There's several casinos close by here, and I usually go there like a few times, several times a year, to go play. And I love doing slots because they're kind of like a thrill. And part of the fun is the thrill of gambling, that you're actually trying to, as remote a chance it is, the actual chance of making some money. But even though I love playing slots, I find it boring to watch somebody else play. I don't like playing slot machine games, slot machine video games, because there's not the thrill and excitement of actually gambling anything. And I kind of felt that way about.
I kind of feel the opposite way, because I'm not gambling my money away in a game.
Yeah.
So woohoo, spend all that money you want and play this damn slot machine.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get that. Just for me, it's the other way around, because I'm
not a gambler.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I had some fun playing these. It was certainly fun to learn. Certainly fun to learn how the game operated and to figure out why they're so popular in Japan. I get it.
Yeah, it was awesome to figure this out.
But it's I would love to play the real thing. I'd love to go to Japan and check out check out one of these parlors and actually parlors that actually play one of these complicated fancy pachinko machines, because I'm sure I'd have a lot more fun playing one in real life as opposed to doing one in video form. But
yeah, I guess you get more balls in real life and it sounds like fun.
Right. So, but anyway, yeah. I mean, yeah. So if you like pinball and you like slots, you definitely should check out pachinko games, because I think you're gonna have a lot of fun playing these. If you only like one, well, maybe that might be enough to be able to persuade you to check it out. So, yeah. So that's kind of my advice. If you've never actually checked out pachinko, or if you kind of turn your nose up at it, and you like either pinball or slots, and especially if you like both those things, by all means check this out. There are again much more modern, much more better examples of pachinko video games on newer consoles and PCs than there is on the old Super NES. But yeah, it was so fun to check them out.
Yeah, I had more fun with the pachinko than I did the Mahjong. For sure. I just liked looking at the machines and how they were designed, and some of them work differently than others. You know,
Right.
some of them actually have some kind of like slots, like in the center of them, and you gotta place the ball in, and it spins them around and all that. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, these things are works of art. In some cases. So, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, so definitely worth checking out. I'm kind of always been curious about it, but never really had the motivation to actually play it. So now we did. So, yeah. So, as far as eBay pricing goes, that's all over the map because obviously most of these games available for sale are going to be imported from Japan, and that raises the cost considerably.
Does it though? I've actually bought a bunch of Japanese games before, and they weren't that expensive.
I think it depends upon hit or miss because right now there's not too many copies of these games being sold locally.
Okay.
I think you are right. Like, in every now and then, collections or copies of them that are already stateside will turn up. But if you're willing to pay the extra money to import from Japan, your options expand considerably. Because tons of copies available over there. But and prices because of that they're all over the map. A couple of the local examples that I found, local being as an already available in the U.S., could be had anywhere for that could be picked up for cheap, for $10. Whereas if you want to get a more rare import one from Japan, that could be you could be talking upwards of upwards of $100 or more. So,
Jeez.
Yeah.
Really?
Because some of these games are limited edition. Companies would companies would offer them as a tie-in for a product or promotional giveaway or something like that. So a lot of these have brandings anime branding, other video game character branding, that kind of stuff. So if it's a popular franchise, that raises the price also.
I have good news. Pachinko Wars 2 is $366 from Japan.
$3.66 or $366?
$3.66 with $4 shipping.
That was one of the and that was and that game was one of the more fun ones actually.
Yeah, I had a good amount of fun with Pachinko Wars 2.
Yes. Some of these Pachinko games, some of these Pachinko video games, I'm actually interested in checking out because there's some of these like I said, they have character tie-ins. There's a Mario one out there.
Really?
Yeah. There's a Sonic one available. There's a Street Fighter themed one, and just some not all these are available in the Super NES, but there are a number of branded ones out there that kind of look interesting. So, but yeah, Mahjong and Pachinko, interesting games to check out. I'm sure these are I'm sure these games were quite good and popular when they came out, but nowadays just kind of by a historical curiosity is the best I can say about them.
I want to play modern Pachinko games now, or at least newer Pachinko games.
There are some. I have seen some games. I have seen some. What do you call those? Redemption games at Malco DMB that play kind of like Pachinko, very similar to it in some ways. Where you have a hammer slot that you have to feed a ball into and shoot upwards, like in a skill shot. But so similar, not quite the same thing. You probably could import a Pachinko machine over here relatively easy if you wanted to. But
there's a few Pachinko games on PlayStation.
Yes, there are good-looking ones too. I saw. But yeah, so some people have. Yeah, some people enjoy having slot machines at their house. So I certainly could see somebody who'd want to have, who'd want to have a Pachinko machine or two.
Yeah.
But so that's pretty much all we have for this episode. I hope this episode was interesting and informative, like some of the people out there. These games are definitely interesting to play. I just don't think the best platform, the best platform to play them on, like the Super NES.
Yeah.
But they're certainly fun and certainly interesting, and not that hard to pick up. Well, at least Mahjong's easy. I'm sorry. Like at least Pachinko's easy to pick up.
Super easy.
Yeah. Mahjong may be like a bit more complicated, but so you have any like final thoughts or observations, George?
Pachinko's fun. You should play it. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, like if you're actually interested, definitely just like starting out with like SNES games, or I think there's actually one Pachinko game that's translated for the NES somebody did. I'm not sure what game it is, but I think there's a translation for one of those Pachinko games for the, I guess I should say, the Famicom, for emulation. But, I mean, yeah, I like Pachinko. I want to play Pachinko. So, I suggest you try out Pachinko.
Yeah, you well said. My thoughts exactly. So, and like I said, like Mahjong is enjoyable. Flake's enjoyable. Like the kind of person who like enjoys like puzzle puzzle tile games, like word games. So Ferg probably would have some fun like playing this. Hey Ferg. So anyway, next episode, speaking about past guest hosts.
Pachinko games. Oh wait, we're not playing any more Pachinko.
At least not on podcast time. You're welcome to keep playing as many of these you want to.
Oh gee, thanks.
We've been teasing guest host episodes coming up for a while now, and we finally are ready to announce one.
Announce away.
Yep. So we're very honored next time for the next episode of the Super NES podcast to have video game writer like an author like Brett Weiss on the podcast with us. He's written several pre-crash video game books that are quite good, and he's just recently announced he's going to be coming out with a Super NES book. So we're going to be talking to him about what kind of book it's going to be, what's going to be in it, what motivated him to do it, that kind of stuff.
I hope it's about the Super Nintendo.
Well, given the tentative title of the game, the tentative title of the book, I certainly think so.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And we're also going to be talking about one of his favorite Super NES games, the classic Donkey Kong Country.
Oh no.
Which I have history with and George does not.
Not too much.
So this should be interesting.
Yep.
But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, etc., we would welcome you to check out our Facebook page. Or if you prefer, you can also send me an email directly to the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. George and I also do another podcast together, PlayStation Power, which is not family friendly, but we've been cranking out some good episodes on that one, recently. So we welcome you to check us out on that one also. This podcast is a proud member of both the Retro Junkies and Throwback Network, where you can check out other great retro gaming and non-gaming podcasts. And we're also available on iTunes, like your listening pleasure. George, what else do you do, and where can the good listeners contact you at?
Oh boy, what else do? I do a podcast called The Box Fort, which nobody should ever listen to because it is not safe for life. That's partly true. You should listen to it, but it's not safe for life. And I also do Master System Masterpieces, where we cover Master System games. That's fun. We already talked about PlayStation Power. You can find me on Twitter at Mr. Chief. That is at MISTURCHEEF. And I think that's about it for me.
Yep. So that sounds good. Once again, as always, we thank you very much for listening to us and giving us like some time. And we look forward to having you on the next podcast. Thank you very much again for your support. Take care, all.
Goodbye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Deep power.